let's talk about Pluto in astrology, and let's put a spin on it by bringing in some symbolism and some astronomy, because Pluto is the planet that is being connected to transformation, to the cycles of death and rebirth, to power, and to the underworld itself. So what I find very symbolically interesting about Pluto is that ancient civilizations did not know about this planet. It was discovered back in 1930 by an American astronomer, and it was at a time where technology made it possible to search further out in the solar system, because many astronomers had a belief that there might be a planet beyond Neptune, and that in itself makes Pluto quite unique as well, because we simply do not have any ancient records or civilizations describing this planet. And if you think about the symbolism, that's quite fascinating as well, because astrologically Pluto often represents, the part of ourself and humanity in all that remains hidden for a very long time until there is an event or something brings it to the surface, brings it into the light, just like the telescope made it possible to discover Pluto in 1930. And although on paper Pluto was declassified or reclassified into being a dwarf planet in 2006, we still consider Pluto as planet in astrology and talks about it from that perspective. Another thing about Pluto is the fact that it's so distant. It travels through the coldest parts and the darkest parts of our solar system. So this astronomy is also tightly connected to the symbolism of Pluto in astrology, because the further away something is, the harder it is to see. And that's also again why Pluto represents hidden layers of our psyche that we maybe rarely see clearly before life somehow forces us into confronting them. And the name Pluto, as I told you about in the Mercury video as well, it's very normal that the classical planets are named after Greek or Roman gods, and that's also where Pluto got its name from. So Pluto comes from Roman mythology, and the god Pluto was considered to be equivalent to the Greek god Hades. And many people think of Hades as, an evil god. That's not really so precise when we look to how the ancient Greeks understood him. He was more seen as a ruler of the underworld than being evil himself. So his responsibility was to maintain the realm of the dead and making sure that there was a natural order between life and death. And unlike many other gods in Greek mythology, Hades, he was not particularly interested in interfering with human affairs, which I find fascinating as well. He just simply stayed in the underworld and ruled that part where, every soul would eventually enter this. And that's also when I described Mercury, the messenger. He was able to descend down to this earth and transport souls through this journey as well. And also, I would like to highlight, the way that astrologers in general speak about Pluto, how it represents death, and it's important because whenever we mention death, a lot of people are like, oh no, but it rarely means physical death. So that's important for me to highlight. It's more, about endings. It's an end of an identity or chapter in life. It could be a belief or end of a relationship, end of an era of your physical health. We change all the time. We get older. Our body changes. And that's just the natural ways and orders of life. It's interesting, what I like about Pluto as well is that there's an equivalent connection with Pluto to rebirth. So now we have this symbolism of the phoenix rising, but before the phoenix can rise, it needs to be burnt to the ashes as well. Pluto takes around 248 years to complete its orbit around the Sun and is highly irregular, which means that it doesn't really move through the zodiac signs at a constant speed. Sometimes it spends just over a decade in a sign, and other times it remains for nearly 3 decades. So when I look to Pluto in a personal birth chart, what I pay more attention to are how it communicates with other planets and which house it is placed in, because Pluto is one of the outer planet and tends to be more a generational placement when it comes to the zodiac sign. However, it's highly unique to you, where it's placed, which house it's placed in, and what aspects it makes to other planets in your chart. Some of the questions that I always ask when I look to Pluto is the deeper psychological questions of what needs to be let go of by coming to the surface so that it can be transformed and there can be a rebirth. What are the life themes of your Pluto placement? In what area in life are Pluto highly activated, and what does it mean for you specifically? Those are some of the questions that you can answer through looking to where your Pluto is placed in your personal birth chart. I like to look at Pluto as being our willingness to journey into the hidden part of ourselves and to face what maybe have been buried, maybe even for generations, so that we can change it by the roots and find the treasures beneath the surface. And in that framework, it also would make sense that in modern astrology, Pluto became the co-ruler of Scorpio. And to end this introduction to Pluto and its symbolism in astrology, I can simply not think of any better way than to read Invictus, a poem by William Ernst Henley that by its essence talks about both our soul's calling and the going into the darkest of the dark to rise in the trust in your own soul's journey. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeons of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.